Why is it necessary for us to buy things from Djibouti and pay in dollars? Why? There is no reason. But what we are buying from Djibouti, let's use local currency. We have these meetings, Africa, US meeting, Africa, Europe, Africa, Turkey. We have made the decision that it is not intelligent for 54 of us to go and sit before one gentleman from another place. And I mean, and sometimes we are mistreated.
Yeah.
You know, we are loaded into buses like school kids. You know, and it's not right. They want to invite 50 heads of state. So we go to a meeting. Just explain to me what kind of outcome you expect where 50 heads of state are sitting. Everybody is asked for speak to 1.5 minutes. You speak to one for 1.5 minutes. What kind of engagement are you going to get? You're going to get nothing, right? The best that you get is photographs. You get these photographs, they normally line us up somewhere, you know, crowd of 50 heads of state, you know, and that's all we come home with, you know.
Hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Elijah.gichuru. I'm coming to you live from my communication center. And thank you so much for subscribing. Continue subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing my content. As I say, this is the greatest YouTuber in the Republic of Kenya. Now, President William Samoei Ruto has also gotten a second standing ovation while addressing African heads of state in Djibouti. The first ever standing ovation he got was in South Africa. And now he's gotten another one right here in Djibouti. Okay, so President Ruto has been at the forefront of cementing, improving, and making Pan Africanism great, reviving Pan Africanism. He has had sentiments that are meant to strengthen the African continent and not just give power to the Western countries like has been in the past, to the West, okay, or the East as well, even in China. For instance, when he was in Djibouti, President Ruto was talking about trading in US dollars. And he's saying that Africans need to reduce the over-reliance in US dollars, particularly in trade amongst themselves. He asked and posed a question to the leaders, African leaders in Djibouti. Why do you need to use American dollars to trade between yourselves? Intra-African trade, inter-Africa trade. Why do you need to use US dollars? Why can't you use your local currencies? And the Exim Bank of Africa is going to make the currencies and change the currencies and all that and strengthen your currencies. Because the more you over-rely on the US dollar, the more you make the dollar powerful. Okay? Remember, there's been this conversation between Russia and China about trading in US dollars. The more countries trade in US dollars, the more valuable it becomes, and the more other currencies raise or lose value in order to gain as much value as the US dollar.
Why is it necessary for us to buy things from Djibouti and pay in dollars? Why? There is no reason. And we are not against the US dollar. We just want to trade much more freely. Let us pay in US dollars what we are buying from the US. But what we are buying from Djibouti, let's use local currency. Traders in our continent can trade in their goods and services, and the Africa Exim Bank will settle payments in local currency.
In Kenya, for example, we have seen the first ever importation of crude oil through Kenya shillings. Importers from Saudi Arabia exporters from Saudi Arabia brought in a very large oil tank in Kenya, a ship, yeah. And for the first time, these oil marketers will pay the supplier via Kenya shillings. This is unheard of because for the longest time, Kenya has been purchasing crude oil in terms of dollars. But now they are paying in Kenya shillings. So the president of Kenya, William Ruto, has been at the forefront of promoting Pan Africanism, making Pan African strong again, making African countries regain their glory globally, and making Africa strong again. In South Africa, he delivered a very powerful speech that actually received a standing ovation from everybody who was sitting in the parliament, in South African parliament. And the president of Kenya was talking about having African heads of state being invited for getting invitations from foreign powers, blackmail that is there, that if you don't honor the invitation, there are consequences. And so heads of state will attend these conferences, but out of blackmail.
They want to invite 50 heads of state. So we go to a meeting, just explain to me what kind of outcome you expect where 50 heads of state are sitting. Everybody is asked for speak to 1.5 minutes. You speak to one for 1.5 minutes. What kind of engagement are you going to get? You're going to get nothing, right? The best that you get is photographs. That's it. Precisely. You get these photographs. They normally line us up somewhere, crowd of 50 heads of state. And that's all we come home with, because there isn't time to engage. Any serious country that wants to engage with Africa, must respect first our architecture. If we have said we are going to be represented by the Troika, why are you inviting 50 people unless you want to sabotage the whole discussion? And if you can't respect our own rules, it is a sign of lack of goodwill. I mean, you must, so that when we engage, if we have a smaller group of 5 people, then you can have a meaningful conversation. And we can have a meeting of equals. But here you are, you represent 200-300 million people. You have a guy here who represents 10 people. You have another guy who represents 10 million people. Then that conversation becomes, and some of the time, the most unfortunate thing is that some of the people who invite us to these meetings tell us, if you don't come, there will be consequences. So all of us are forced to go to a meeting that has no meaningful outcome because of blackmail. This is not right, good people. This is not okay. So I have written to my brother who was here the other day that this time round, any other invitation, it must respect the rules of our continent. We have said any meaningful engagement, anybody who wants us to take them seriously, they must first respect our architecture. If they want a fruitful engagement, they should engage our continent in a manner that we can effectively represent our people and we can effectively discharge our mandate and articulate our issues, not in a crowd. We want to be effective. We want to engage. You know. So if you are one head of state and you want to engage all these people, surely are you sincere? You know, in engaging in a crowd, because some of these good people, they want to avoid any commitments. You know, they want to avoid any meaningful engagement. They just want a baraza and okay, pictures, and then we go. Dinner, and then, I mean, good people, we have food in our countries, at least.
And the other thing is, you can't invite over 50 heads of state to one conference and expect to get a meaningful conversation. This is what President Ruto is saying. If you want a meaningful and impactful conversation, you send representatives and we discuss the matter as equals. But sending 50 heads of state to go and listen to one person, there will be no commitments, there will be no engagements, and according to our president, he's saying the best you can get out of such a conference are pictures and dinner. You just come back home with photographs and dinner. And this sank well with legislators in South Africa, and they really saw the president of Kenya trying to make Africa a force to reckon with and respected globally. In fact, the president was saying next time we get an invitation, they should be willing, or the foreign powers should be willing to engage Africa in accordance to their terms and conditions, in accordance to the standards of Africa, what they want, and not just impose things upon Africans. Recently, the president of Kenya was also speaking to Mo Ibrahim, Mo Ibrahim Foundation, and he was telling Mo Ibrahim that, African leaders are mistreated and they are bundled in buses like school kids. We remember you guys during the burial of the former queen, okay? They bundled African leaders in a bus. So the other heads of states were allowed to use their convoys and their cars and all that kind of thing. But the African heads of state were bundled in a bus. So President Ruto was saying it was like school-going children.
For 54 of us to go and sit before one gentleman from another place, and I mean, and sometimes we are mistreated.
Yeah.
We are loaded into buses like school kids, and it's not right.
Well, you are summoned,
It's not right. So the decision that we have made as AU is that going forward, if there is going to be a discussion between Africa and any other country, we are going to be represented by the chair, the outgoing chair, the bureau.
The chair of the commission and the chair
and the chair of the Rex, and we have 5 Rex. That should be sufficient for, a meeting of maybe 6-7. Yeah. That should be able to represent Africa. And that is the position I am taking as the president of Kenya. For any other meeting that we are going to have with all these requests that we have a meeting between Africa and one other country. We respect the sovereignty of others. I think to ask for reciprocation is not to ask for too much.
No.
And for us to agree that let us have this kind of setup. The only, because I had a conversation with President Kagame, and he actually led that particular position. I have had a conversation with Prime Minister Abiy. He believes very strongly that that should be the position of our continent. Because, as you have said, if we don't respect ourselves, nobody is going to respect us. And we should be able to take that kind of decision. And part of that respecting ourselves is when we say African problems, African solutions, we must be serious about the solutions. It cannot be rhetoric.
And this is an issue that shows that African leaders maybe feel mistreated, they feel devalued, they feel like they don't amount to anything and they don't mean anything to the foreign powers. And that's why they are subject to humiliation, they are subject to blackmail, and we saw the other day Museveni talk about the anti-LGBTQ laws, and he was saying that for foreign powers to force you to do things that don't align with your values for the sake of money, that amounts to prostitution. Okay? It's only a prostitute who does things for money, but the things she or she is doing does not align with the values. Okay? So that is the point here. The point here is strengthening Pan Africanism. And we've seen the president of Kenya trying to bring that power of the African continent. He's saying that if we join our forces as Africans and negotiate as Africans, just like the European Union does, European Union has joined forces, is a market of 400, 500 million people, and they negotiate for deals through as African Union, and that gives them a higher bargaining power. And therefore, the president of Kenya is saying it's high time for Africa also to join forces to negotiate as equals. If you're going to meet the African Union, for example, what kind of engagement will you get as an African country versus what you will get in terms of as the African Union, for example? We have the European Union and the African Union negotiating, and therefore that is more meaningful engagement. Okay, so this is the point the African leader is putting out there. We have seen him get help, assistance, or engage in both the East and the West. For the African president, for Kenya's president William Ruto, for him, it's about the benefits. It's not about who is loyal to who. Okay? For him, he says that even China trades with the US and the US trades with China. So why would an African country isolate itself, say they trade with US and not trade with China, or they get loans from US and not China, or they get development, or they get roads to be done by China and not US? That kind of segregation is what brings down the balance. I mean, destroys the balance of trade. It's what makes the African countries get road deals and fail to get the highest potential of development. Because if US can trade with China, why can Kenya not trade with both China and the US? Why can Kenya not get both the assistance from China and US? Why can't Kenya not get roads or any other kind of development from both East and West? And this is the message of the President of the Republic of Kenya, strengthening Pan-Africanism. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. That has been my time. This has been Elijah.gichuru. Thank you for the support. Continue subscribing, liking, and sharing my content. Until next time, adios.